The sun was shining, the Rocky Mountains were bustling. It was a good time for couples to talk about their love. I am excited to open the door of the house. Frost clouds closely behind me, carrying a basket of things. As soon as I entered the door, shouted, "We are back!" Unexpectedly. Once I opened the door, it was actually Blood Plume, who was as relaxed as he was in his own home, and even said, "We're all back." Blood Plume smiled and twisted his head. "Quickly sit down and rest." Frosty Cloud was simply full of questions and was speechless at his behavior. I didn't have a good attitude towards Blood Plume. I asked him, "Why are you here?" It's like he's the master of the house. Saying he quietly hid behind a rock at this time. Heart 100,000 alert. Slowly said, "This person is very dangerous. Must stay away from him." Dai also walked over. His attitude towards him was cold, directly swearing sovereignty. "How come Elder Blood Plume has time to come to my house as a guest?" Blood Plume opened his mouth with a beaten face. "Bringing my son to find his mother." Dai was so angry that he gnashed his teeth. He really wanted to rush forward and beat him up. When I heard this, I immediately slapped the table in shame and indignation. My complexion couldn't help but be a little flustered, and I hurriedly opened my mouth to explain. "Don't listen to his nonsense," and angrily stretched out his finger to point at the Blood Plume. Dad frowned and shouted, "Can you not say this kind of ambiguous words? I have nothing with you." Blood Plume was simply fearless, or that look of beating summoned the half-branch lotus. In its ear accusation, "Your mother dislikes us how to do." The half-branch lotus immediately straightened its roots and looked majestic. The little guy was also very domineering, stepped forward and stretched out its branches and leaves to wrap around my arm. And as soon as I pulled me over, I cried out in panic. I looked on with a puzzled face and saw it standing in the middle like a peacemaker, constantly persuading and making peace. Now, Dad, stay together, stay together. Blood Plume heart simply happy flowers, very compassionate, reach out, touched half a lotus bud. A bud did not hurt you in vain. Finished as if asking for permission, shouted a child's mother. My whole body instantly frownsy, and I was silent with a face of vegetables. My heart was in 7 pairs, and I was in a nervous cold sweat. If Dai heard this, the consequences would be unimaginable. Hastily and nervously looked back. The White Emperor's expression was dark and gloomy. His mouth was closed and silent. His aura was frightening. This is the end. But I couldn't help but clench my fists, looking a little flustered. Explaining the whole thing to Dai, not wanting him to get the wrong idea. I stared with big soulful eyes and explained to him, Dai, you should be able to feel it with the ring on. It's not what Blood Plume said." Dai nodded seriously. He understood it all. But for Blood Plume to come up with such a way to get closer, it seems like he's really hooked on it. Seeing that the explanation is clear, I have no more worries, and with an angry face, I walked out of the cave, wanting to drive away this nuisance. Blood Plume. The top of my head was smoking, and I pushed Blood Plume with my arms outstretched, so I could leave without seeing him off. Blood Plume was pushed by me and stumbled. Ruthless woman. The White Emperor stood at a distance, watching the two of us interact. Such a powerful guy didn't directly snatch the reprieve. I'm afraid he's already trapped in it. Blood Plume sighed with a pitiful look at the half-branch lotus. A person alone in the house, and good to have a son to accompany me. I tugged the corners of my mouth, speechless, directly sneer. Gave up arguing with him. This had no. He acted happy on the good. Dai's eyes sullenly stared at the door. His sight was too eye-catching. It would be impolite to pretend not to see it. Blood Plume had to raise his head, and their eyes met in there. He was very clear in his heart, and knew that Dai had seen through his mind. But in the end, the person who makes the decision is only Slow. All Dai can do now is to be by the side of Slow no matter what. The weather gradually turned cold. The sky did not know when it started to pour rain. The breeze blew past, revealing a hint of coolness. Dai and the others have all gone hunting, and the rain won't let me follow. So I opened the system panel and wanted to plant something else. But my level is too low right now. I can't plant the potatoes and rice that I want. I opened my big eyes and looked up with some curiosity to ask the system, "Xiaohachi, why haven't you sent me any quests lately?" Xiaohachi's cold and inorganic voice came. "Outside of random and special missions, the system will not take the initiative to issue missions." As soon as I heard special missions, my eyes immediately widened. Couldn't help but clench my fists, full of excitement. This is the first time I've heard of it. The difficulty of special missions was divided into beginner, intermediate, and advanced. The higher the difficulty level, the more generous the rewards. Which level mission does the host want? I was about to say I wanted an advanced mission, but I immediately realized I was being impulsive. I'd better calm down. The difficulty level of the mission is still unclear. So, I raised my head and took a beginner's quest with Hachi. I was going to feel the difficulty first, to test the waters. After all, you can't eat a fat man in one breath. However, there are currently 3 primary quests, which are related to planting, minerals, and hunting, and it is recommended that the host take the minerals quest. I couldn't help but frown. Hunting and killing I definitely don't dare to choose, but I don't quite understand why the system suggests choosing minerals after evaluating it. Shall I well speak up first to explain? This mission is relatively simple, and the host is in great need of crystals right now. I immediately clenched my hand with some anticipation, and was so shocked inside that I couldn't help but stare. Mining turns out to be able to dig up crystals. After getting an affirmative answer from the system, I was simply bursting with joy and motivation. If I could dig up a crystal vein, wouldn't I be making a fortune? The host has successfully taken over the primary mining task. The special task cannot be abandoned. The time limit is 3 months to complete. The task failure will accept the punishment. After calming down and learning that there is a punishment, I cannot help but ask with some nervousness, "What is that punishment?" Xiao Hachi's face was sullen. The punishment for the primary mission is to be unconscious for 7 days, and after the failure of the advanced mission, the life may be directly wiped out. When I heard this, my face immediately turned ugly. I couldn't stop the fear in my heart. I almost chose the advanced mission just now. Liu White then thoughtfully reminded again that because of the limited time, the host is requested to hurry up and complete the mission, and then it disappeared. I couldn't help but close my eyes. Relaxing, I exhaled a breath. Fortunately, I didn't act on impulse just now and pick up the advanced quest. I then took out the compass again and looked down at it and thought, the mission time is limited. It seems I need to hurry up. I carefully recalled what Hachi had said and carefully turned the compass in my hand, wanting to activate it. But just as I twisted it, the compass actually clicked and turned on its own. It simply couldn't stop. Not only did this pointer keep spinning round and round, but it was also getting faster and faster. I couldn't help but look a little flustered and could only hold it in my hand in a frowning manner. So hastily called the system, suspecting that the compass again should be broken. Xiao Bai soon appeared in front of me. The treasure hunting compass needle kept spinning because of the location, just located in the top of the ore vein. I heard this is simply full of question marks. Instantly incredibly wide-eyed. How can be so lucky? Clutching the compass in my hand, I lowered my head and contemplated. There is a vein up or under my feet. When Bai Dai and the others came back, I hurriedly told them about the mineral vein. A few people were also shocked when they heard this, seeing that they were very unbelievable. I nodded my head with great certainty, but opened my mouth with some hesitation and asked, "So should we dig?" Bai Dai pondered for a while. If we dig, it will most likely cause the body to sink, and if the situation is serious, it might even collapse. I didn't expect the situation to be so serious. His face immediately turned ugly, and he couldn't help but frown. Same Knight also has concerns. Once the digging starts, it will alert other tribes in the vicinity. The feathered clan will not be able to hide it. It will attract countless covetousness. Hearing this, I covered my mouth with some hesitation. I didn't think that there would be such serious consequences. So let's not dig. Right. Frosty Cloud lowered his head with a headache. The crystals were certainly tempting, but he actually cherished the current days more and didn't want to invite trouble. Bai Dai also nodded in agreement. Sang Knight's attitude was also very agreeable. Frost Cloud was right. My heart is also very guilty. I can't force the whole clan to be first to move just because of my one mission. It's better to look elsewhere. Early the next morning, it was a beautiful day with bright sunshine. I was in a hurry and kept circling around in the same place. 3 months is not too long to say, not too short to say, but where the hell am I going? To find another vein. Having said that, I'm still a bit nervous, in case I underestimate. The punishment isn't the heaviest, but it won't be a lightning strike and a 7-day coma. Right. The White Emperor noticed from the side. Since yesterday there is something on his mind. Is it because of the vein? So he probed and asked with concern, "What are you thinking about?" I smiled at him a bit sheepishly. Since I've made up my mind to look for the vein in a different place, I have to go out and look for it quickly. Looking at Bai Dai's alert eyes, I'd better not tell them. Bai Dai is too smart and good at thinking. He might guess something. So he hastily took his arm and started pampering him, trying to pull away from the topic. "I'm so bored at home. Can you take me out for a stroll?" White Emperor smiled and agreed. Go out to get some air or not? Slow down, happy. May be willing to tell the heart. Soon I changed my clothes. Excitedly shouted. Set off. White Emperor turned into the appearance of the original body of the big white tiger. The two went out together. While passing by the vegetable garden, I ran into Saint Knight, who was busy in the field. I saw him and excitedly shouted out his name, then stretched out his arm and waved at him, bidding him a happy goodbye. We're going out for a stroll. Don't have to wait for us to have lunch. Sun Yu was silent for a while, his eyes staring straight over. He also wanted to go very much in his heart, so he hastily opened his mouth. I want to go too. I frowned when I heard this, feeling a little surprised. When the clan members saw this, they laughed and advised me, just take Saint Knight with you and have some fun. Leave the watering to us. Don't worry about it. I was all smiles, and after earnestly thanking everyone, I came to Saint Knight's side. I raised my hand affectionately and touched Saint Knight's snake head. Let's go together then. Saint Knight's heart was practically bursting with joy, and she hurriedly agreed. Soon one person, one tiger, and one snake headed outside, walked out of the unknown. How far? I cannot help but look down at the hands of the compass. The heart is very sad to hear the compass did not move. At this time on a tree, there are many bird eggs in the bird's nest. Saint Knight was very keen to find them. He fiercely poked out his big head, his eyes sharply staring at these bird eggs, directly flicked his big tail and rolled up a nest of bird eggs in his heart. He was very pleased. So many bird eggs. Slowly will definitely like it. Sonya directly stuffed the bird eggs in my hand. I was a bit shocked as I looked at the nest of eggs, inwardly marveling, this is too much. I quickly concluded that Sonya must be a repeat egg thief, seeing his face of selling and pleasing. I only need one, then wanted to let the two of them share the rest of the eggs. But Bai Dai suddenly spoke up and refused, not liking the eggs. They tasted strange. Seeing Bai Dai's disgusted expression, I picked up a bird egg and quickly thought of a way to make sure he would like to eat it. I looked up at the sun in the sky. It was midday and the sun was at its peak. I found a lotus leaf and knocked the bird's egg on it. In the past, in modern times, there was a saying that the egg was scorched by the hot sun and fried into a lotus egg. After a while, after the scorching sun under the carbon baking, the egg soon nuisance out of the aroma. It was baked. Pak Tai's penny kept shrugging. It was too fragrant. The bird's egg that smelled foul became so fragrant all of a sudden. I hastened to strike, while the iron was hot, and roasted 3 or 4 eggs on a lotus leaf, took them over to Bai Dai, wanting him to taste the flavor. Bai Dai immediately opened his big mouth and dropped it into his mouth. With his eyes closed, he took a bite of the lotus egg with great enjoyment, and hurriedly threw one to Sang Yi as well. Looking at their happy faces as they ate, I was also very happy. Sonya finished eating and was ready to go fetch water. I stuffed a bite into my own mouth as well, chewing the contents of my mouth, and nodded, thinking, the poached egg I made is really delicious. Sitting alone under the tree, I couldn't help but feel a little emotional. I would actually eat a poached egg in a strange beast world. How could I not dare to think about it before? I looked up at the sky and felt the breeze in my ears. Dad, Mom, I will live well in this world. While I was lost in thought, a water bag suddenly appeared in front of me. I hurriedly looked sideways in surprise. It was Bai Dai, who had turned back into his human form. He lowered his head and gently handed the bag to me, filling it with some water. Would you like to drink some? I hastily took it and drank it in large gulps. In this world, I still have Bai Dai, Frost Cloud, and Saint Knight, and many others. I'm not alone. After drinking the water and quenching my thirst, I asked Bai Dai with some anticipation, how is it? Is the poached egg I made good? Bai Dai's eyes deepened. His eyes stared at me without moving. Compared to eating poached eggs, I want to eat you more. When I heard this, the water in my mouth hadn't even been swallowed. Immediately shocked, it sprayed out and splashed onto Bai Dai's face. Saint Knight, who was coiled up in the tree, tilted his head, a little puzzled in his heart, and asked with a face of innocence, is something wrong? I quickly shook my head. Nothing, and could not help but take out the compass. Seriously look at a moment. The heart-sinking thought, this pointer has never moved again. After traveling so far, there is still no trace of the vein. I'm still a little lost in my heart. Bai Dai noticed my emotions very keenly, concerned. He asked, is there any difficulty? I wanted to say something. I need a lot of crystals. Saint Knight listened carefully to my words from the sidelines. So it turns out that slowly came out in order to find crystals. He couldn't bear to see me sad, so he opened his mouth and spat out a bunch of crystals, which were almost piled up into a small mountain mound. When he left the temple, he only brought this much with him. I was very shocked to see this scene. Saint Knight can actually spit out so much. Is there a storage space hidden in his mouth? Bai Dai also understood. If you want crystals, I have a friend who has some crystals stored there in B City. I can go fetch them all for you. I couldn't help but freeze when I heard BC. Bai Dai hardly talked about going there. Maybe it wasn't a good place for him over there. So I tugged on Bai Dai's shirt with some concern. I can take care of it myself. Don't you go to B City. I don't want to be separated from you. We are too weak right now, and if we go to B City rashly, we might encounter a lot of potential risks with White Eyes. I worriedly reminded Bai Dai. There must be another way to find the vein. When I said those words, Bai Dai's eyes looked a little sad, but I didn't read him at all. Bai Dai looked at me towards a beam of light that illuminated his entire darkness. I was worried that he was in danger. I was really keen and felt the danger of the B City. Immediately after that, I turned the ring on my hand and took in all the crystals that Songya had brought with him. Sang Knight nodded very nicely. I have the ability to put things all in the ring and take things out of the ring as well. He transformed into a snake body and guarded me at the side. He looked at me fondly. He really didn't expect the slow ring to be able to take things in and out at will. He then turned his head to look at Bai Dai. Sang Knight thought of Bai Dai and Frost Cloud, also wearing rings on their hands, not sure about the magic of their rings. Bai Dai sensed his sight and twisted his head directly to look at him. What's wrong? Sang Knight, however, grinned a little, crouched down and shook his head, but he waited for a while, and then he gave White Emperor, just think I'm amazing. Sang Knight thought I sympathized with him and kept him around, but Bai Dai looked at me in front of him with deep eyes. I am awesome and special. Maybe later, I will be more awesome than the people in the city. And at this moment, I am admiring the peach blossoms. My smile is very radiant. It's because of this that they are all shocked inside. The sun is about to set. The birds in the sky are flying freely. The dusk seen at this time of the year gives one a desire to go home. Frosty Cloud squatted in the vegetable garden, his hand on his head listlessly. He looked at the fresh cabbages in front of him, but his mind had long since flown far away. Soon he raised his hand and poked his face again, pondering with a haughty look on his face. His inner turmoil led him straight to me. I was walking side by side with Bai Dai and was puzzled to see Frost Cloud running towards us. I called out to him in surprise. I really didn't expect Frost Cloud to run straight over and stick it to me. Frost Cloud thought that Bai Dai and Sang Knight had eloped with me, and his words left me speechless. I've only heard of 2 people eloping. I've never heard of 3 people eloping. As soon as these words came out, he let go of me. He looked at me with arrogance and shyness. At some point, a few red feathers drifted down in the sky. At this time, none of us had discovered who the feathers belonged to yet. When I noticed that something was wrong, I looked up into the sky at the same time as Frost Cloud and found Blood Plume with his wings spread out. He was actually listening to our conversation. Blood Plume looked at the half-branch lotus on his arm. The child misses his mother, so I, as a father, of course I had to bring him to you. He kept shouting a mother. I looked at his smelly appearance very angry. We can't let Blood Plume continue to be so ambiguous. If you really want a child, you should go find a female. He didn't expect me to say that. I am a family man. Please don't say that in the future. These words made the air around Blood Plume gloomy and cold. Seeing that, I was angry. The half-branched lotus kept wrapping around Blood Plume's wrist and shouted loudly towards me, calling out to me, Auntie. His voice made me suffer. Every sentence of Anyum gave me a heartbreaking feeling. Long pain is better than short pain. I tell the truth. I am sorry. I am not your mother. I can't let Little Pod be used by Blood Plume any longer. Blood Plume looked at my smile, revealing a kind of evil. You want to draw a line. His eerie aura made my whole body feel a chill, but I could only harden my heart. Blood Plume's smile looked so dangerous. Blood Plume's aura was very powerful, and in a low voice, he said, very well. He then raised his hand and pinched Half-Branch Lotus's lifeline. This pinch was so good that it made Half-Branch Lotus tremble, and it cried like a child. It cried like a child. He wanted a bot to stop and let himself go. Seeing this scene, the White Emperor walked straight up and blocked in front of me. With sinister eyes, he glared angrily at Blood Plume, who was going crazy. However, Frost Cloud on the side also clenched his teeth and stared closely at his movements. At this moment, Sang Knight's face wasn't any better, all afraid that I would be hurt. In the sky, Blood Plume had a smile on his face that made people think hard. Your mother does not want you, so there is no use in keeping you now. After that, he used the art of bathing in fire and burned the half-branch lotus. He kept pleading with a ba in the fire, but Blood Plume showed no mercy. When I saw the scene, I was surprised that Blood Plume was going to burn the little pod. I directly shouted at him to stop. You cold-blooded fellow. Hearing my words, Blood Plume put away the phoenix flame, looking at the half-branch lotus that was floating down in the air. I hurriedly went forward to catch it and kept calming him down. Half-branch lotus, who had been choking, was trembling in my arms. His choked voice said, Auntie, I'm in pain. This broke my heart. I gently patted his body. Poor flower, crying like a little baby. How could Blood Plume bear it? Wanted his life. Blood Plume slowly fell from the air. Didn't you want to draw a line in the sand? He kept my blood and yours. Just burn it and you'll be completely clean. His words poked my bottom line. I directly scolded Blood Plume angrily. He at least called you a ba? You actually want to burn him to death so heartlessly. He then opened his wings and had the face to smile at me. But what he said stuck in my heart. In terms of cruelty, who can compare to you? With a brush, he flew up into the sky, fluttered his powerful wings, and left in contentment. I was left standing in the same place, angry. The sky was already getting dark. The sun was setting and the moon was slowly climbing up. The sky was particularly relaxing at the moment. I took the half-branched lotus back to the home. After receiving a basin of water, straight put him in the water. Looking at the scars of the half-branched lotus, heartbreaking. My heart has been broken. I directly bit my finger. Want to use blood to feed the half-lotus, so that he quickly get well. Drop by drop, the blood slowly flowed down my fingertip. Every drop landed on the stamen of the lotus with precision. As I nourished him with my blood, his petals slowly stretched out, and his voice wasn't as jerky as before. He cried out excitedly for Auntie. The half-branched lotus was now slowly recovering. I reached out and gently stroked the petals. Rest well, it won't hurt when you get up after a good night's sleep. From now on, you live your life with me and ignore that bastard bloodling. After the half-branched lotus received the warmth of my fingers, it shook its body. Frosty Cloud, who was hiding in one place, watched us. My gentleness towards half-branched lotus made Frosty Cloud's face grow darker and darker. Feeling like she was being robbed of her love, Frost Cloud showed his sharp teeth in anger. This little flower is blatantly relying on me. So when will I be able to carry his child? Dai directly yanked out Frost Cloud in the dark. Don't look. We have something to talk about. Go out and talk in detail. Frosty Cloud was very angry when he was pulled by his neck after being yanked out by the White Emperor. Frosty Cloud stared at him angrily. White Emperor has something to say. Quickly say it. Has been waiting for you here. What is so important about this? He did the same action as Frost Cloud. Today he went out actually for the mineral vein, but the mineral vein is not easy to find. Consider the vein of Rocky Mountain. It's better to just dig out the vein underneath the Rocky Mountain. When these words came out, it made Frost Cloud very shocked, and Sang Knight was not spared either. At this time, Sang Knight also found out that I wanted to open the mountain and dig up the mines. Sang Knight voiced out the concerns for me, but just didn't want to cause trouble for everyone and kept it bottled up. Hearing this, Frost Cloud was another shock. Sang Knight twisted her head to look at him and reminded Frost Cloud, because I have to go out tomorrow to continue searching for ore veins. The vein is very important to me. When Frosty Cloud found out about this, he agreed to the matter. He definitely won't let me suffer, because I'm so cute and well-behaved. Frosty Cloud crawled around Sang Yu's tail, and now arranged for everyone to dig for the mines. Seeing his impulsive appearance, Sang Knight helplessly advised, wait first, don't be so impulsive. To dig for minerals and still live on the mountain, will it be dangerous? Dai leaned against the stone wall. If it is a small vein, you can hollow out the ore and build a house on the original foundation. There would be no danger. But as one big gasp scared Frosty Cloud and the two of them. But if it was a large vein of ore, it would have to be a different place to stay. There is another problem. The digging will definitely not be able to hide from the Feathered Clan at the top of the mountain. Is it not a good idea to say hello first? Dai said seriously. When he finished speaking, Frost Cloud turned around and walked out of the cave. He knows that this matter is very important to me. He will go and talk to the Feather Clan chief. Frosty Cloud's face instantly turned gloomy, and in a low voice, he said to the two behind him, big deal, we'll fight. Whoever wins will listen to whoever wins. The next morning, the sun was just about to rise, and the dazzling sunlight shone through the mountaintop. I yawned repeatedly. At first, that's why I had tears in my eyes. I was still in a deep sleep, but as I stepped out of the cave, the sun shone directly on my back, and the warmth made my sleepiness disappear instantly. No one was home all morning. Awake, I walked slowly along the road. I came halfway up the hill and heard the noise below me. After that, I walked forward and stood at the hillside and looked down. Below was actually the beasts of the Rockwolf clan. What were they going to do? Immediately after that, I could see the people leading the group. It was actually Sang Knight and Dai. This sight gave me a twinge of unease. Not knowing their plan, I hurriedly ran down from the middle of the mountainside and ran towards the two of them with open arms. I wanted to blend in and find out what was going on. When Dai watched me run over, he picked me up in his arms. His deep eyes overwhelmed me, and he never forgot to remind me to be careful. After receiving White Emperor's instructions, the beasts of the Rockwolf clan began to carry out their work. I was surprised and asked Dai, you guys are digging a hole? Instead, he nodded, after which he instructed me that breakfast was put in the pot. I followed his example and nodded to look at him as well. At the look in his eyes, I looked back. That's what made me remember what they were actually doing. I was surprised to say what you were digging for, but it wasn't the least bit defensive of me. Last night they had discussed that there was a vein up or right at the bottom of this rocky mountain. It would be a waste if we don't dig it. I stared at him in front of me with big dull eyes. I was heartbroken for him at all times. Their sudden change of mind was for me. Looking at the beasts of the Rockwolf clan, they were sweating profusely. Everyone must have started working early in the morning. I'm really thankful for them. Suddenly someone waved at me and called out to me as a witch doctor. I looked back at him in surprise and returned a smile to him. The way everyone was working seriously made me very happy. Everyone has worked hard. So you guys dig first. I'll go to the vegetable field to see what's there. Standing alone by the river, I looked at the sparkling water. I can't stop it now. It's not good to change things from one day to the next. The half-branched lotus in the water is now in a much better condition than before. I kneeled down and watched him, looking very happy with his vigor. The half-branched lotus is standing up. He stretched out a lotus leaf in the river. This is for me. He shook his body excitedly and called out, Auntie. I took the lotus leaf he gave me and blocked the harsh sunlight. I cooled off under the lotus leaf, which was comparable to a mobile mini air conditioner. Once I experienced the effect of being under the lotus leaf, I came up with an idea. I asked the half-lotus for some lotus leaves. However, on the other side, the beasts who were working hard under the scorching sun were receiving the sun's baptism. I then wanted to give them the lotus leaves. Running from the side of the river to the White Emperor, I had a lotus leaf on my head and two more in my hand. This one can block the sun. It's very comfortable. Bai Dai took the lotus leaves in my hand and placed them next to his body, and he instantly felt cooler. The corners of his mouth rose slightly and he smiled, but I put the lotus leaf directly on Sang Knight's head. Sun Yao was very cute with it on his head. He won't be so uncomfortable by the heat in the future. Sun Yu raised his hand to support the lotus leaf on his head, and his body instantly felt cool. Just as I said, the effect is comparable to a mobile mini air conditioner. Suddenly I sensed something was wrong and turned my head to look behind me. I heard the people behind me shouting, "Oh no, there's a fight!" The orc of the Rockwolf clan hurriedly ran towards me. His face was very ugly, and he opened his mouth in panic. The clan chief and the clan chief were fighting. At this time, on the summit of Rock Mountain, many people were watching from above, and the whole scene was very noisy. Flying birds passed through the sky and were frightened. The Feather Clan had powerful wings and amazing speed, while the Wolf Clan was no less powerful than the Feather Clan. This was a war that belonged between the two clans. Frost Cloud transformed into a wolf as he rubbed his sharp claws on the ground. The spot he stood on had been left with several scratches by him. When he had built up enough strength, he attacked towards the Feather Clan chief, who hastily dodged. The wolf's claws were rapidly freezing wherever he scratched them. Most of the crowd of onlookers were Feather Clan members who stood below and watched the battle. They also didn't forget to cheer for their clan leader. The beasts of the Rockwolf clan were also unconvinced, and they kept cheering their clan leader, unlike cheerleaders from both sides. When I got this news, I ran from the bottom of the mountain to the top. When I reached the top of the mountain, the road was surrounded by a huge crowd. The two of them, Blood Plume and Frost Cloud, were not letting anyone in. Both of them attacked with vicious moves. I only knew that Frosty Cloud was doing it for me. Seeing this scene, I was very worried about Frost Cloud. My face was gloomy as I shouted his name. At this moment, I was planning to rush up and stop them, but I didn't expect Blood Plume to pull out of the fight and come in front of me. He looked at me condescendingly. The fighting arena is not something I can go to. The more he said, the more gloomy his face became, and the smile on his face gradually disappeared. A duel between male beasts. No one is allowed to intervene. No exceptions. I just wanted to drill in through the gap, but was discovered by the blood spirit on the side. He stopped me without saying a word, just to keep me away from being grabbed by the back of my neck to tease me, struggling in his hands. But my strength was never able to defeat him. But he laughed disdainfully and taunted me. At this moment, the White Emperor appeared beside me and directly snatched me from Blood Plume's hands. Bai Dai's sinister eyes wanted to kill Blood Plume. Bai Dai hugged me and persuaded me to let them fight. Letting out the conflict instead of holding it in is good for both sides. Don't worry about it. He stroked my cheek. You have to trust Frost Cloud. Although he usually seems impulsive and impatient, he's not weak. He'll be fine. These actions made me feel a little shy. I silently lowered my head, not daring to look at Bai Dai's gaze, standing on the periphery of the battle arena. But inside, I had been fueling Frost Cloud in the battle arena. I sincerely prayed that Frost Cloud must win. I looked at the scene inside, but I couldn't see Blood Plume's figure. I really don't know where he is now. However, Blood Plume is looking at me from the side. Blood Plume's eyes were filled with a murderous aura. It's been for days since the last time I was unhappy. It's not easy to have a chance to see me again, and I turned a blind eye to him. At this time, after I came into contact with his sight, I directly stared at him with disdainful eyes, and my whole person was very grumpy. Angrily, I turned my head and only looked at the fighting field, not leaving Blood Plume with any look in his eyes. But Blood Plume didn't get angry at me. The whole person became a sunny and cheerful big boy again. The more I was like this, the more Blood Plume didn't want to let go of me. Frost Cloud snapped his foot on the rock, and the aura around him snapped to life. Beside him there was also the Feather Clan chief accompanying him here. Shen Yan quietly gasped for breath, and a few small drops of cold sweat emerged from the corners of his forehead. Even his main body was starting to get a little weak. Little Frost Cloud bared his teeth and gazed ahead, his body's exhaustion seemingly falling on deaf ears. Only his ears began to shrug. He extended his hand with a smile on his face, and his low voice slowly sounded, "Do we count as a tie?" Shen Yan gazed appreciatively and high-fived him, and a crisp sound rang out. The runes on his arm actually became lifelike. However, he did not say anything to Frost Cloud, but in the eyes of the two of them, one could read the meaning. I anxiously ran with small steps, my large eyes overflowing with worry. This caused me to keep shouting at Frost Cloud. I couldn't care less about his frantically wagging tail, and slapped my small hand viciously on his shoulder. "Quickly let me see your body." On his sturdy and powerful arm, there was a heavy bruise. If the other party's claw scratched deep, the wound would be very troublesome to get infected. Only to see the little Frost Cloud's small face red. "We-colored skin cannot resist the shyness," and finally explained that I am not afraid of course. Standing behind Shen Yan was very dissatisfied, a pair of eagle-like eyes staring at dead. I quickly felt this line of sight, but after realizing that he did not mean any harm, I let him look at me at will. Shen Yan suddenly let his thoughts fly. This is the little female that Blood Plume has his eye on. It's quite cute and looks gentle. He fiercely looked at his fellow clan's young elder. "You actually like little bitty females, but your tastes are very strange." Blood Plume looked at him unimpressed. "A tiny one. You can hold it in the palm of your hand and love it well." Clan Chief Shen was disgusted by these words, so he stepped back in a row. I didn't expect Blood Plume to be a pervert. He still planned to get his mouth first. Images of me flashed in my mind. "But I see that she didn't look at you after she came. You couldn't have been dumped." "Right." Blood Plume definitely couldn't hear the sentence, and his flavorful peach blossom eyes narrowed slightly. Have the guts to say it again. Shen Yan Shen Patriarch frantically stepped backward and Saturday on the ground with a buttock. "Elder, I was just talking casually." The young elder, however, buried a seed inside, and his eyes couldn't control themselves to look towards me. But I only have Frost Cloud in my eyes right now. His long eyelashes flapped carelessly, and his sexy lips quietly flicked open. "Want to get rid of me? Dream on." Shen Yan Saturday on the sidelines and witnessed the whole thing, feeling a pang of fear in his heart. Suddenly, he sympathized with the little female who was targeted by Blood Plume. Because the results of the battle between the two leaders were not comparable, the two sides returned to the negotiation table. The two little Feather Clans walked forward with gusto, but the Feather Clan chief was a bit confused. "Are we going to look for the vein?" Frost Cloud stood in front of me and nodded. His body's muscle lines were perfect. Shen Yan's focus is no longer on this. "How do you know that there is a vein of or under the mountain?" He smiled leisurely. "Of course, the old witch doctor told me before he was born, when I had not yet awakened the animal spirit. But our Feather Clan chief is what character?" A glance to see through this wolf man in front of me. He must not be telling the truth. Blood Plume suddenly opened his mouth in a sinister manner. Was it really the witch doctor who said that? But his eyes looked towards my position. I immediately felt a wave of hair all over my body, and a feeling of fear covered my little face. So I quietly raised my head to observe in doubt. What was going on? Just now it felt like I was being watched by a wild beast. Shen Yan flickered his wings behind him. "You guys are opening up the mountain for mining. What if the mountain collapses? I can't explain to the clan. Frost Cloud has long had a way to deal with this. We intend to hollow out the mineral vein and rebuild the place to live. And we can also share it with you." The Feather Clan chief was a bit skeptical when he heard this. "Building a house isn't that simple. Can you guys build it well?" Frosty Cloud instantly hooked a smile, very confidently holding his chest and explaining, "It seems that the Feather Clan is interested. That's what we intend to do." But there was always someone who spoke up to interrupt, and Blood Plume directly expressed his disagreement. The crowd snapped in his direction, their large eyes filled with doubt. Why would he disagree? Blood Plume patted the dust on his arm, his expression devoid of any semblance of emotion. if it can't be realized? Aren't we suffering a big loss for nothing? Hey, Frost Cloud, we're the first to express our displeasure. What's in it for me to lie to you guys? You're deliberately picking a fight, aren't you? The elder lit up the jewel on top of his head, his brows filled with satisfaction. I did it all for the sake of the Feather Clan. Shen Saturday by the side helplessly. I'll be damned if I believe you. When you play with your temper, you can kick the entire Feather Clan like a ball. Bai Dai suddenly stood out. Elder Bloodplume is so adamantly against it. What does it take to believe in our sincerity? If you can solve the problem of the Feather Clan's fertility difficulties, not only will we move, we will also mine the veins together. I hurriedly grabbed Bai Dai's arm, my small body quietly stepping back. I didn't even notice Bai Dai's expression at all. Frosty Cloud was instantly enraged. What does your inability to have children have to do with us? Do you want us to care? I had to reach out and pull the man's body with my small hand. I am a witch doctor. Maybe I can try. There are herbs for infertility in the Flora and Fauna Almanac. We can find a solution if we study them. All the people of the Feather Clan were stunned. The witch doctor of the Rock Wolf Clan can solve the problem. Can we let the Feather Clan carry a child? Bloodplume was also a bit unbelievable. A pair of phoenix eyes staring at me. This little female even agreed just like that. He seems to want to explore my truth. Is it too stupid or too naive? Of course I don't know all this. Then it's a deal. We'll help mend the veins, and you solve the problem of the fertility affliction. Shen Yan stood at a loss for words, and his heart was actually very upset. It seems that I am the Feather Clan chief. Right. I only saw that he suddenly opened his blood-red wings, and the oppressive feeling of his body immediately came to me and threatened me not to lie to him. I stood still in fear, but he walked slowly to me, whispering softly that he would definitely not let me go. He then went on to state that the agreement was official, and if I didn't do it, he wouldn't let me go. I felt the chill in the air and cringed slightly, but I still nodded my head to signify the deal. Frosty Cloud and Shen Yan Saturday on the sidelines, speechless one after another, and this finalized the cooperation proposal. In the end, who is the patriarch? He looked at Shen Yan with a sly look in his eyes. At the expense of you being a clan leader, letting that Bloodplume decide everything. So under my resolute commitment, the Feather Clan members also joined together in the fierce mining vein operation. The Feather Clan had an inherent advantage, as they happily flew in the sky, holding the small wooden barrels in their arms. Frosty Cloud and the others stood by and watched. They actually sighed in whispers once the feather rays joined in. The speed was quite a bit faster. The White Emperor nodded approvingly, but at the same time, he couldn't rest assured about me. I can only hope that I can find a way to say yes. As a famous witch doctor, which is the best treatment for infertility. Of course I am slowing down the witch doctor to help. Then I was a little shy. Just now the behavior seems to be a modern kind of advertisement, specializing in the treatment of psoriasis scammers. So I focused on the herbs again. This kind I have. This kind I don't. I'll have someone look for it in the forest later on. I have most of the herbs for infertility. The rest will take time to collect all of them. I had just closed the book when a voice appeared above my head. I thought you had the guts to say yes. So you're hiding a secret weapon. I quickly turned my little head to look. I didn't expect the visitor to be Bloodplume. Why are you here? The White Emperor instructed me not to let anyone find out. Could Bloodplume have seen it? He wouldn't have leaked my secret out. Right. The man doted on me. I've seen it all. I'm not interested in your Ellis. I'm more interested in you. I was upset and turned my head away from looking at him. This Birdman is temperamental. It's better to avoid it first and hide the parchment booklet. I took the pamphlet and tried to get up, but accidents always happen. My stomach is simply too painful. Bloodplume hurriedly leapt down, his blood-red wings quickly retracting. Then he walked with his long legs, concerned about how I am doing. The pain in my stomach caused me to frown tightly, beads of sweat dripping from the corners of my forehead. In my mind, however, I already had a suspicion, so I quietly looked between my legs. Things are really not right. My own, they're actually bleeding. Bloodplume quickly walked behind me, with a hint of shock in his expression. You actually bled? Could it be that you're injured? I don't want to pay attention to the big pervert, so I shouted at him very fiercely. I'm fine. Just get out. But this big pervert actually picked me up in a hug, not even caring about my retort. Big hands tightly imprisoned my body. Who was always calm, was also a bit flustered. If our Feather Clan females are like this, it means that the child in the belly is dead. I was petrified in place. My little mouth forgot to retort. For a while there was actually some internal stagnation. Then I snapped on the man's face. What child died? Shut up you. Do I look like I'm going to have a baby? My belly is flat and moving freely. Of course it's not a miscarriage. I'm just having my period. The little birdman is even more puzzled. Who is Auntie again? I'm helplessly crumbling inside. Why do I keep having to explain physiological phenomena to the orcs? But for now, I'm still in his hands. So I took a slight breath. This is a normal phenomenon for me. I just need to rest. Little Blood Plume has been reserved all his life. For the first time I heard someone drive him away. But I don't care about that. This is my home. Please get out. He stayed on me for a brief moment, then flickered his wings again and left the cave. Now I sighed heavily. Finally gone. But the pain in my stomach was unbearable and the blood was staining my dress. I had to change my clothes first. In a few minutes I was changed. My own belly still hurt a little. Luckily I had the required tampons in my space. I got comfortable on the bed and the huge bed instantly wrapped around me. It made me let out a long sigh of relief, but there was something different about the touch under the bed. So I felt up quickly, then Saturday up again in a hurry. Under the animal skin were actually feathers. Blood Plume's voice came from above, and I couldn't help but quietly look up. Why are you still here? I held the feathers on the bed with both hands, and a hint of surprise passed through my gaze. Did you make these feathers? The man above me didn't feel anything. Only his voice was more gentle. This will be warmer and more comfortable when lying down. I was touched and put down the feathers. My big clear big eyes were incomparably innocent. Thank you. These things are very useful to me. In looking at the Blood Plume has long since twisted and flown away, leaving only one sentence. For us is the same as losing our hair. Nothing more than that. He suddenly stopped. His guard relaxed in front of me. You get some rest soon. I looked up into the cavern above me. The figure quickly disappeared. He should be gone now. The bed padded with feathers is much softer and more comfortable. That Blood Plume, I didn't expect to have such a sight as well. I guessed that the man who had gone away was standing not far away, but he was thinking in secret. He remembered my painful appearance. Large wings involuntarily flapped. It's still not a good idea to leave her alone now. Let's wait for those guys to come back. At that moment, a rustling sound came from the side, causing him to look back violently. It turned out to be Sang Knight hiding behind a rock, her small face filled with weariness. Blood Plume was puzzled and opened his mouth. What are you hiding for? Sang Knight instantly became even more defensive. This is our home. What are you doing here? Blood Plume suddenly remembered my appearance and spoke to him with a flat face. Slowly a little uncomfortable, bleeding a little. I let her lie down, only hearing the moment of bloodshed. Sang Knight said that he couldn't listen to it at all and flew into the cavern. I heard the ringing and turned around violently. Surprisingly, it was Sang Knight who came with food and with an anxious face. He asked me if I was hurt. I ignored the Blood Plume above me and hurriedly waved my hand to Sonia. I'm fine. I'm just having an auntie. Blood Plume narrowed her eyes slightly in displeasure. This snake isn't her mate either. Right. Why can it be so good with her? It's really an eyesore. A small bouquet of buds within a certain space violently erected its own rooted branches. The killing aura just now. It was Daddy. Its petals opened one by one, and the tiny bones actually looked nervous. Mother and Daddy. Don't ever fight.